Love can wait, but friendship can't. They'll be here after. That's what my girlfriend know. My ex told me the night everything fell apart. Her name was Liana, 24, bright, magnetic, and completely devoted to her group of friends. The Hive, as they called themselves. I used to think it was cute, how close they all were. But somewhere along the line, it stopped being sweet and started feeling like I was just the background character. In my own relationship, I'm Evan, 26, and I thought I'd finally found someone I could build a life with. We'd been together for 2 years, lived together for 6 months, split rent, shared groceries, built routines, domestic bliss, at least on paper. But when your partner treats 5 other people like co-owners of the relationship, love starts to feel crowded. It all started small. Group dinners that replaced our date nights, weekend trips that didn't include me, constant phone buzzes during every conversation. I'd wake up next to Liana, and before she even said good morning, she'd be scrolling through the Hive's group chat, laughing, typing, replying to memes. I learned to live with it. I told myself it was harmless, but deep down, I was beginning to feel invisible. When our second anniversary came around, I decided to remind her who we used to be. I made dinner reservations at the restaurant where we'd had our first date, and got tickets to a live jazz show she'd mentioned loving. It wasn't grand or expensive, just thoughtful. Something to say, "Hey, I still see you." I found her sitting on the couch, her eyes glued to her phone, watching her friends' weekend stories. "Hey, I've got something special planned for our anniversary next Saturday," I said, trying to sound excited. She barely looked up. "Oh, babe, that's the same night as Nova's birthday pregame. I can't miss that." I laughed softly, thinking she was joking, but she wasn't. I suggested Friday or Sunday. She shook her head before I even finished. "No, you don't get it. Saturday's the only day everyone can make it. Kai's traveling next week, Mia's under a ton of stress from work, and Theo just broke up with his girlfriend. They need me. They needed her." That phrase hit harder than I expected. I wanted to say I need you, too, but the words caught in my throat. "It's our anniversary, Liana," I whispered. She crossed her arms, her tone sharp now. "Love can wait, Evan. Friendship can't. They were here before you and they'll be here after." Those words echoed in my head for days. They'll be here after. Like our breakup was already penciled into her calendar, squeezed between their next brunch and summer getaway. It wasn't the first time she'd chosen them over me. She missed my graduation because of a mandatory game night, my brother's wedding, too tired from a 3-day festival. When my mom had surgery, she texted me from their trivia night saying, "Give her my love." But when one of her friends needed a ride at 2 a.m., she called me like I was an Uber. I tried to talk to her again and again, about balance, about making space for both worlds. She'd nod, promise to do better, then immediately plan another group outing. When I'd ask for one quiet evening, she'd call me controlling, say I was trying to isolate her. Last month, I found myself sitting alone in a coffee shop, my laptop open to a rental listing for a 1-bedroom apartment 20 minutes away. My name filled the application form. I stared at it for a long time. My friends told me to give her an ultimatum. But what's the point of begging someone to want time with you? So I clicked submit. A week later, I'd moved out half my stuff without her even noticing because, of course, she was with the Hive every night. When she came home and realized what was happening, her face went pale. "Evan, what's going on? Are you moving out?" I handed her a letter. Simple, honest. I told her I loved her, but I couldn't keep being 6th place in my own relationship. She read it twice, her hands shaking. "You're seriously leaving me because I have friends?" "No," I said quietly. "I'm leaving because you forgot how to be a partner." She glared. "This is ridiculous. You knew who I was when you met me." "I thought I did," I said, zipping my bag. "I thought you were someone who wanted to build something real with me." She started crying, pacing, talking about memories, about all the times we'd shared. But even her memories included them. Every story began with, "Remember when we in the Hive?" I realized then there was never truly an us, just me orbiting her social universe. I left my key on the counter, whispered goodbye, and walked out before she could say another word. By the weekend, my phone was flooded with messages from her, from the Hive, from numbers I didn't even recognize. They said I was cruel, immature, selfish for abandoning her. One of them even accused me of breaking the family when I ignored them. They showed up outside my new apartment building, 5 of them standing like a wall behind her. Evan, we need to settle this, she demanded, voice echoing in the courtyard. You don't just walk away from everyone. That word again. They lectured me about loyalty, accused me of hurting all of them, as if dating Liana had made me their emotional caretaker, too. It was surreal. Grown adults crying, filming, yelling about betrayal. I told them to leave or I'd call security. They didn't believe me until I did. That night, when the noise finally died down, I sat alone in my new apartment, the silence deafening but peaceful. For the first time in 2 years, I felt free, heartbroken, yes, but free. And I realized something. Sometimes love isn't about holding on tighter. It's about knowing when to let go before you disappear completely. 3 weeks passed before the noise truly stopped. The calls faded, the texts slowed, and eventually, even the Hive went silent. My apartment was small, just 1 bedroom and a kitchen that smelled faintly of old coffee. But it was mine. The quiet that used to terrify me now felt like peace. For the first time in a long while, I could breathe without waiting for my phone to light up with another group notification. I started rediscovering parts of myself I'd buried to fit into Liana's world. I met up with my old friend Jake, who said I looked 10 pounds lighter just from relief. He wasn't wrong. I'd been so used to walking on eggshells, balancing between being supportive and not needy, that I'd forgotten what stability even felt like. Now, waking up meant coffee and quiet, not a dozen conversations I wasn't part of. But life has a strange sense of irony. Jake worked with one of Liana's friends, Theo, which meant updates found their way to me whether I wanted them or not. Apparently, the Hive wasn't doing so well. Adrien, the calm one, had gotten engaged to his girlfriend, who wasn't too fond of their all-consuming friendship dynamic. Kai had moved for work. Mia was busy with her promotion. And Nova, the same Nova whose birthday had ruined my anniversary, was traveling abroad for months. The Hive, the unstoppable unit, was unraveling. Jake told me that Liana hadn't taken it well. She's been saying everyone's turning into you, he said one evening over drinks. She even told Theo that Adrien pulled an Evan by choosing his fiancée over the group. I laughed. A bitter, quiet laugh. The same thing that once made me controlling was now making her feel abandoned. According to Jake, the tension escalated when Adrien skipped their annual beach trip. Liana accused him of forgetting his friends, of prioritizing some girl over their memories. When he reminded her that he was getting married, she apparently said, "That's exactly what Evan used to say." Look how that ended. It was surreal hearing my name thrown around like a cautionary tale in a group I'd never truly belonged to. But I couldn't deny the irony. The same loyalty she'd used to justify neglecting our relationship was now tearing her friendships apart. Still, I didn't gloat. I didn't wish her pain. I'd done enough of that in the quiet hours after I left. Instead, I started living again. I picked up my guitar, something I hadn't touched in over a year. I reconnected with friends who'd quietly stepped back when my relationship consumed all my weekends. One of them, Lena, invited me to a small gathering. No forced smiles, no constant photo ops, no content moments. Just people, food, laughter. That night, I met Sira. She wasn't loud or showy. She didn't need a crowd to validate her presence. We talked about books, travel, stupid childhood stories. And the wild part? She listened. No phone, no distractions, just presence. We started seeing each other casually. Coffee, quiet dinners, small walks through the city at night. With her, I never had to fight for space. She gave it freely. She had her own friends, but she also understood balance, the kind of understanding I used to beg for. One morning, a month into seeing Sira, I woke up to a message that froze me. "Hey, Evan, I've been thinking a lot. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime, just to talk." It was Liana. I stared at the message for a long minute. I didn't feel angry or nostalgic, just tired. I ignored it. The next day, another came. I know I made mistakes. I didn't understand balance before, but I'm learning. Maybe we could try again. I showed the texts to Jake, who nearly choked on his drink laughing. "Man, she found out you're doing well, didn't she?" Apparently, word had reached her that I was happy, that I'd moved on. maybe even found someone new. And with the hive dissolving, the reality of being alone was starting to hit. I didn't respond. I owed her nothing, but I'd be lying if I said her words didn't echo somewhere deep inside me. There was a time I would have done anything to hear her say those things, to admit she was wrong, that she understood. Now, it just felt hollow. Days later, the messages stopped. I thought that was the end of it, until one evening, Sarah and I went out for dinner downtown. The restaurant was warm, candlelit, filled with quiet chatter. I was laughing at something she said when I froze, because there she was, Liana, sitting at a corner table with Theo and Nova. Our eyes met across the room. I could see her debating whether to come over. Sarah noticed my pause. "You okay?" she asked gently. I nodded. "Yeah, just someone I used to know." For a moment, I hoped she'd stay seated. But as we got up to leave, Liana stood and walked toward us. "Evan," she said softly, "can I talk to you? Just a minute?" Sarah squeezed my hand, offered a reassuring smile, and stepped outside to wait by the car. Liana looked older somehow, not in years, but in weight, the kind that sits behind your eyes. "I know you haven't answered me," she began quickly, "but I needed to tell you this. You were right. About everything. About balance, priorities, the way I treated you." Her voice trembled. "I see Adrien with his fiancée now, and I realize what I took for granted. I thought friendship meant loyalty, but it was just fear. Fear of being alone." I swallowed hard. There was sincerity in her tone, maybe even regret. But the thing about apologies that come too late is that they no longer change the ending. They just rewrite the memory. "I appreciate you saying that," I said quietly. "But we're past that chapter, Liana." She nodded, tears welling. "I know. I just needed you to know I understand now." Her gaze shifted toward the window, where Sarah waited. "She seems lovely. I hope she sees what I didn't." And then she turned, walked back to her table, and that was it. I stood there for a long time, not sad, not angry, just at peace. The version of me who once begged for her attention wouldn't have believed this feeling existed. When I got to the car, Sarah asked, "You okay?" I smiled. "Yeah, I really am." That night, lying beside her, I realized something Liana had never understood. Love doesn't compete with friendship. It coexists with it if you let it. But it requires choice, attention, and effort. And when one person refuses to give that, love doesn't die, it just quietly leaves, waiting for someone who will. A few months later, life felt normal again. Not the dull kind of normal that makes you restless, but the kind that feels safe, steady. I'd started freelancing more seriously, picking up design projects and actually enjoying my work again. Sarah was teaching art classes at a community center, and sometimes I'd stop by just to watch her explain color theory to wide-eyed kids who still thought every mistake could be fixed with glitter. One Friday evening, we decided to host a small dinner at my place. Jake came, of course, along with a couple of my old college friends. It was simple homemade pasta, a few bottles of wine, laughter that filled the room without effort. At one point, I looked around the table and realized this was what I'd wanted all along. Not perfection, not intensity, just warmth. Later that night, when everyone had gone and the apartment had quieted again, Sarah leaned on the balcony railing beside me. The city hummed below us, soft, distant, alive. "You ever think about her?" she asked suddenly. Not accusatory, just curious. I didn't flinch. "Sometimes," I admitted, not in a what-if way. More like remembering a different version of me. She nodded. "The one who tried to be enough for someone who didn't know what they needed." I smiled faintly. "Yeah, that one." She reached over, threading her fingers through mine. "I like this version better." I laughed. "Me too." There was something grounding about Sarah. She didn't need to fix my past, didn't need to compete with it. She just existed alongside it, and somehow that made everything lighter. But the past, as I would soon learn, has a way of lingering quietly until it finds a way to knock again. It was a Sunday morning when I got the call. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me swipe. "Evan?" The voice was trembling, almost unrecognizable at first. "It's Theo." I blinked. "Theo, hey, man. It's been a while. What's up?" There was a pause, then a sigh. "It's Liana. She's not doing great. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? She's been struggling since the Hive kind of fell apart, he said. She quit her job a month ago, moved back in with her parents. Nova's in Spain, Adrienne's completely cut contact, and she doesn't talk to anyone much. I think she's depressed. I didn't say anything for a moment. I wasn't sure what I could say. Theo hesitated. She asked about you. Said she saw your post something about your new project and she looked happy for you, genuinely. But she also said she misses how grounded things used to feel when you were around. I rubbed my temple. Theo, I don't know what you're asking me to do. I'm not asking anything, he said quickly. I just thought you should know. She's been going to therapy, trying to make sense of things. But yeah, she's having a rough time. When the call ended, I just sat there, staring at the muted TV. Sarah came out of the shower, towel wrapped around her hair, and saw the look on my face. What happened? An old friend called, I said. Liana's not doing well. She studied me for a second, then quietly sat beside me. Do you feel like you need to reach out? I thought about it, really thought about it. There was a part of me, the old me, that wanted to check in, make sure she was okay. But there was another part that remembered how many times I'd tried to help her before, only to end up drained and small. I think she has people who can help her better than I can. I finally said that. Sarah nodded slowly. That's fair. We didn't talk about it after that, but the thought lingered. Not guilt exactly, just a shadow of empathy that refused to fade. I didn't want her to suffer, even if she had once been the source of mine. Weeks later, I saw her again by accident. This time, I was leaving a bookstore downtown when she stepped out of a cafe across the street. She looked different. Simpler clothes, no entourage, no phone glued to her hand. Just her, a coffee, and a small sketchbook. For a second, our eyes met again. She smiled, not the forced, confident smile I remembered, but something smaller, softer, real. I raised a hand in a polite half-wave. She did the same. And then we both kept walking. That was the last time I saw her. It struck me then that closure isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just two people passing on a quiet street, acknowledging that whatever existed between them had already served its purpose. That night, I wrote in my journal a habit I'd picked up from Sarah. We were never enemies, just mismatched lessons in the same story. She taught me the cost of imbalance, and I taught her what happens when love goes unheard. Sarah found the note later, smiled, and kissed my forehead. And maybe that's how real healing works, not when you stop remembering, but when remembering no longer hurts.